Hi guys, and welcome to my show. My name is David Nates, and today I want to tackle a pretty fun subject: my top 5 worst video game to movie adaptations. For people who know me or have been following my channel, you can definitely tell that I love video games. I feel that they have been a great inspiration for me as an artist, actor, and filmmaker. Nowadays, if you look at games, they're actually becoming more and more like movies because of their intricate plots and motion capture that can sometimes create wonderful cinematic sequences. That being said, it's not because some video games may have been popular that adapting them into movies is a great idea, especially if the video game story is watered down to hopefully appeal to a broader audience, or maybe simply because some early video games are fun to play but are actually lacking a decent story. This means that the Hollywood writers that are meant to adapt these games into scripts need to make odds and ends from a game that lacks much depth at all. That being said, I do feel that there are a ton of amazing video game to movie adaptations. One of my favorite ones is the Resident Evil franchise. Maybe not all of them are amazing, but I feel that with every sequel something different and another aspect of the biohazard Resident Evil world is explored. That being said, I want to focus on the worst video games to movie adaptations, as they are more fun to nitpick and somewhat can create a cult following simply from the ridiculousness that they instill. The first one I'd like to speak about is Double Dragon, which was released in 1994 and features one of my favorite martial art actors, Mark Dacascos. A lot of people will probably recognize him for having acted recently in a major Hollywood motion picture entitled John Wick 3 as the antagonist character Zero. Well, in this movie he gets to play a teenage boy named Jimmy Lee alongside his on-screen teenage brother, Billy Lee, portrayed by actor Scott Wolf. Right off the bat, you'll probably ask yourself, what were the casting directors thinking, since both actors are clearly somewhere in their mid-20s, and judging from their physique, most certainly not related at all. At least they do acknowledge the adoption side of things by introducing their caretaker, Satori Imada. In 2 words, the story of Double Dragon goes as follows. Their mentor carries one half of a magical dragon amulet. The evil Koga Shuko carries the other half, which he stole. If the dragon amulet is put back together, the owner will gain tremendous powers. Koga is after the boys and the charm, sending his evil gang as he chases them throughout the city until the climactic showdown. The boys defeat the evil Koga with the help of a vigilante gang headed by their friend Marian Delario, daughter of the police chief. Did I mention that evil Koga Shuko is the same actor that portrayed the T-1000 in Terminator 2? Just the fact that they were able to cast such an actor should have made the movie a home run, but if a script is bad, there's just so much that can be done. The biggest problem I had with this movie was the overall cheesiness and campiness. It feels like this movie is catered to toddlers, and some scenes feel like they should be in a Power Rangers episode. What's disappointing too is that Mark Dacascos is an amazing martial artist, but all the fight scenes are ridiculously choreographed, where both brothers fight almost as if they are kids, bickering in a playground, resorting to gags and tricks that would only make Beavis and Butthead proud.
This sucks.
Yeah, me.
Double Dragon is the perfect example of how someone can try mixing as many ingredients as possible in the hopes that it'll give something delicious. Well, sometimes too much just creates a disaster. The second movie I'd like to speak about is the 1993 movie Super Mario Bros. This one is a strange one because as much as it's been criticized, I didn't realize that people hated it this much until recently. You see, when I first saw it in the movie theater, I was a kid and I loved the heck out of it. I must have watched it a dozen times throughout my childhood. The fact that this movie had a perfect amount of dark undertones just reminded me of the Ninja Turtles and the Tim Burton adaptation of the Batman movies. It had enough slapstick to be funny, but also enough dark undertones to feel like a film catered to adults. I do realize that this movie has a ton of bad reviews simply because it doesn't follow the story of the video games. Plus, looking at it as an adult, I can recognize how bad the acting is, although I do want to give praise to Bob Hoskins as the character of Mario and Dennis Hopper as King Koopa, because with the poor script that they were given, they actually managed to portray very entertaining characters. If you're wondering what the actual plot of the movie is, well, 2 plumbers from Brooklyn, Mario and Luigi, discover a parallel world populated by intelligent descendants of dinosaurs. You see, in this movie, millions of years ago, when a meteorite hit Earth, the dinosaurs did not go extinct as modern science says. Actually, a parallel universe was created where dinosaurs evolved into creatures similar to us. King Koopa, the ruler of Dino Hatton, finds a way to merge the two parallel universes and needs to recuperate a fragment of meteorite held by Princess Daisy, who has been living in the human world since childhood. Personally, I think that this movie is so criticized because it just has very little resemblance to the video game. It's almost as if this movie had nothing to do with Mario Brothers, and some exec thought that if they slapped a couple of names from the Mario franchise's character names in the film's script, and put a couple of Nintendo references in it too, that it'd be enough to please the audience. Speaking of Nintendo references, the biggest one in the film is the use of a super scope, which was painted black and gray and used as a weapon called the Devo gun, used by King Koopa in the climax of the film in order to use its powerful laser in order to devolve anyone that is shot by it. All this being said, I do feel that the movie deserves a watch simply because of all the potential that this franchise had, yet by executing it poorly it created a monster of a film. The third movie that I'd like to speak about is the 1999 movie called Wing Commander, which in itself, even though it was a video game, was already almost an interactive movie with its cinematic cutscenes that even had actors such as Mark Hamill, Malcolm McDowell, and Thomas F. Wilson as main cast members for the game. Even up to this day, the game is remembered fondly for its story arc and fun gameplay. In this iteration of the series, they went with a more kid-friendly cast and hired late 90s heartthrob Freddie Prinze Jr. Fans had very high expectations for this cinematic adaptation, which was actually directed by series creator Chris Roberts. In short, Wing Commander is set in 2654, where an interstellar war rages between the Terran Confederation and the Kilrathi Empire. The cat-like Kilrathi are seeking the complete eradication of the human race and even the universe, which doesn't make sense because if the universe is destroyed, so would they. The humans, being the good guys, offer peace to the Kilrathi over many video computer screen conversations to simply be shot down. The Kilrathi, after capturing a navigational device which shortcuts their route to Earth, can only be intercepted by one team of the fighter pilots. In the not-so-epic climax of the film, the Kilrathi do manage to take the shortcut to Earth proximity only to be quickly destroyed by the Earth fleet without a fight. Talk about wasted opportunity. I'm still confused as to how they had such an epic cast for the games, yet when the real movie is being made, romantic comedy actors get cast? I have nothing against Freddie Prinze Jr. and his co-stars, but it just seemed very odd to cast these people, especially that in the late 90s, this movie had to compete with a new series of Star Wars films that was about to be released and very good sci-fi series such as Star Trek and many others being broadcast on TV. I'm not saying that Wing Commander didn't have a shot at success. Other sci-fi films such as Starship Troopers did very well in the late 90s. I just felt that it needed to differentiate itself enough to garner an adult fan base and not cater so much to cheesy jokes and teenage girls. After all, the cast was pretty similar to She's All That and subsequently Scooby-Doo in 2002. The fourth movie that I'd like to speak about is the 1997 movie Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This is the sequel to the original Mortal Kombat, and if you enjoyed the first one, well, you're in for a treat. This movie is so bad that it could have as well been made by toddlers. The original movie had a really good soundtrack, interesting characters, nice cinematography, enjoyable fight choreography, and even though the story was a simple tournament-style movie, it had enough going on for it that it was a fun experience. Annihilation is so cringeworthy. In 2 words, the little plot that there is tells the story about a portal that opens up between the outer world and Earth. Emperor Shao Kahn goes through that portal with some of his goons with the intention of conquering Earth and uniting both worlds. However, he only has 6 days to complete this task. A group of warriors comprised of Sonya Blade, Jax, Kitana, and Liu Kang fight back in the hopes of saving Earth. Wow, I'm kind of seeing a pattern of interdimensional travel between all these video game to movie adaptations, right? So on top of having a really silly story, Annihilation has extremely bad green screen shots where the king literally goes through the person's skin, horrible cinematography, poorly written and executed dialogue from the actors, and other VFX shots that almost look like they are from older movies from the 1930s. What is sad about the sequel is that the Mortal Kombat video game is actually one of those games from the mid-90s that had a decent amount of interesting characters with interesting enough storylines. So writing a decent script for the movie seems like a simple task. I really believe that the studio execs just wanted to create a cheap movie to make a quick buck from a known franchise. What's funny is that even within the storyline that they tell, most of what they come up with is completely made up. It doesn't make sense because, as mentioned, the actual video game had enough story to build from without actually making things up. For example, in this iteration, Raiden and Shao Kahn are brothers, and they create this fictional dragon heirloom that is a fast pass that allows people to travel between worlds. They also have a tendency to describe or portray characters as total opposites compared to the game. I would have thought that if someone was hired to write a Mortal Kombat script, that they would have actually played the video game for a while in order to get the gist of things, and maybe a micro understanding of the lore. Even characters that are supposed to be friends don't know each other, and to be frank, if you are going to do a martial arts movie that is based on a game that has nice combat techniques and bloody fatalities, I'd expect the same from the actual film itself. Give me a bad story, bad acting, bad CGI, but make an effort on the martial arts and fatality side of things. The fifth movie that I like to speak about is the 1994 movie Street Fighter, starring one of my favorite actors, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I swear that he's not one of my all-time favorites just because he's from Brussels, Belgium like me, but simply because I usually find myself entertained by a lot of his film work and I was inspired by his success story in Hollywood. Anyways, the movie Street Fighter tells the story of how General Bison, the evil dictator of Shadowloo, captures a busload of relief workers and holds them hostage for ransom. Colonel Guile, portrayed by Jean-Claude Van Damme, leads a strike force to invade the Shadowloo and rescue the hostages. Guile recruits Chun-Li, a martial artist reporter, two young conmen, Ryu and Ken, and E. Honda, a sumo wrestler, in order to help him in his rescue situation. This is another bad movie adaptation where I feel like the writers may have never even played the actual game. First of all, Guile is supposed to be an American. In the game, he even has tattoos of the American flag on both of his arms. Van Damme clearly has a French accent, and even though he resembles the game character, they should have given him his signature hairstyle. He does take a comb out as a victory pose in the game after all. As for the other characters, the casting couldn't have been worse. Ryu and Ken aren't the muscular characters of the game, and I don't believe that most of the people cast as these martial arts experts exhibited any kind of finesse in their fights. This goes back to the whole palm in your face example. If it's a movie based on a martial arts game, then the fights need to be spectacular. Most characters exhibit special powers such as fireballs or special aerial attacks. Apart from an incredibly small Hadoken from Ryu, I don't remember many moves from the game. I guess Guile does a backflip with a flash kick a la Guile, but I didn't want to see a step out backflip. I would have preferred to see a huge flaming flash kick or a sonic boom. Talk about wasted casting. Raul Julia is an incredible actor. He portrays Bison and is most known for his role of Gomez in The Addams Family. I love him as an actor, but the character just didn't fit him. He's not a martial artist, and they clearly didn't give enough time or importance to actually train the actors somewhat and rehearse fight scenes. Raul Julia was extremely sick at the time and died soon after the end of the shoot, so why cast someone who wouldn't be able to portray such a powerful character? This is not the actor's fault, but clearly a production's fault that did a bad job all around. I do think that some people still seem to enjoy this movie, but I blame it on very small children simply remembering the nostalgia of going to the movie theater to watch it. Street Fighter is again one of these games that has so many interesting characters and storylines. Messing up this movie and ruining it in some ways is just such a wasted potential for a proper movie franchise. What's funny looking back at all of these movies is that I realized that all of these bad adaptations are from the 90s. It was a time when violence was much more frowned upon for kids' games. Nowadays, with a lot of these 90s kids being in their late 20s or 30s, movie violence and more adult themes are more acceptable in these game to movie adaptations. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to subscribe and smash that like button. This sure was a trip down memory lane. Leave me a comment too and let me know what is your worst video game to movie adaptation, and let me know if you'd be interested in me doing a follow-up video where I can show my top 5 best video game to movie adaptations, as there are quite a few. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.